So my original plan was just shoot those guys down and then fly away scot-free, but that clearly isn't going to work anymore. Hello! I am Aoyalaipe, and I like to hop into top tier matches in War Thunder and then personally kill the entire enemy team by myself. Welcome to my channel. Look familiar? Look familiar? Yeah, I decided this thing needed a nostalgic paint job. Alright, so this here is the MiG-21 Bison, which is the new premium MiG-21 for Britain. And before you ask, the answer is 27. My best kill streak with this thing was 27. It's actually pretty interesting. I died right at the start, that annoyed me, so I popped a backup and just poof, no more enemy team, like so. Now, if you've seen my channel before, or my profile picture before, or you were in that particular match or reading the chat, then you'll know that I really like MiG-21s. I like them because they are really good at trapping entire lobbies in endless spirals of death. Most MiG-21 variants have a lot of speed and firepower, so if you manage to snowball an enemy team hard enough and then you fly this plane to its strengths, then the only advantage the other team can have over you is that their faces outnumber your missiles. So sometimes you just can't kill them all in a single pass, unless you go to guns, of course. Now, the good news is that, don't worry, test drives normally only last 30 days, so I can't rampage with this thing forever. The bad news is that Gaijin didn't give me a test drive. They straight up gave me this plane for free. I own it now. Like, permanently. I could quit YouTube tomorrow and still keep it forever. Because someone at Gaijin thought that was a good idea, like, what's the worst that could happen? Hey, you can't call it pay to win if I never paid. Now, as funny as it is to mop up prop planes with R-27s, doing that doesn't quite teach you how to fly this plane well enough that you will know how to snowball a team that hard. Although, just to be clear, it never gets old. So I'm instead going to show you a video of how to fly this plane under pressure, you know, how to handle when things go wrong. I'll post a link to the raw footage of that other match in the description as bonus content. Okay, so the first thing you gotta understand about a MiG-21 is that it is a missile that shoots other missiles. Understanding how to use the airframe properly in arcade is the tricky part, but given how the footage worked out, I'm actually going to explain the weapons first and the airframe second here. So the MiG-21 Bison is the only plane that unironically uses the R-27R. Everything else that gets R-27Rs also gets R-27ERs. The R-27R is pretty straightforward. It's a good radar missile, and it's pretty much comparable to all the other radar missiles at this battle rating. AIM-7Fs, R-27Rs, 530Ds. You know, they do have some differences, but they all provide very, very similar capabilities. Okay, the key thing to remember when using any of these planes is that clock position really matters. I made a whole video on this, but the TLDR here is that with this plane, with most targets, if you shoot at a target flying directly towards you, your closing speed and range will be about double what it would have been if you had fired at a target flying directly away from you. It's also harder to dodge. Hitting someone from 7 kilometers ahead on is a lot easier than making a 4-kilometer rear aspect shot. So that's how I start the game. I get some distance, I get some altitude, and then I go fishing for a target that is more or less flying towards me so I can snipe them. This little number here tells you how fast the potential target is moving towards or away relative to you. So that's how you know what they're doing if you can't directly see if they're flying towards or away from you because they're so far away. As you can see, that number grows a little bigger. That means the F4 turned towards me. That'll make it a lot easier to hit him, so I go ahead and snipe that specific guy. In addition to the 2 R-27s, this thing can carry 2 R-73s. R-73s are usually flareable, but you have to flare them quickly. And F-104s generally don't have flares, so I saved an R-73 for that F-104. Then I fire a flareable shot at this F4, however he doesn't flare it until he's close, so he dies. R-73s have IRCCM, which means it's very difficult to flare from the rear aspect at close range. So if you let it get too close, especially too close to your engine before you flare it, then you can't flare it. R-73s also turn crazy hard, which means it's virtually impossible to outturn them unless you have flares. This also means that even if it's not a rear aspect shot, if you don't flare it fast enough, it's still gonna hit you. I am now out of missiles and countermeasures, so I pull out and head back towards the safety of my own spawn to reload. This is an area that will just generally have a few teammates hanging out, and having teammates around gives me cover even on a featureless map like this. For some reason, an enemy MiG-21 singles me out and follows me, and he's gaining on me. He's a little faster, and if he gets close enough and shoots an R-60M, I'm dead meat. So I pull up and over him to spoil his shot, but then one of my teammates kills him anyways. In top tier air arcade, you generally want to have a plan A, a plan B, a plan C, a plan D, etc., and you shouldn't be afraid to use all of them simultaneously. Now, remember what I said about the R-73 hitting you if you don't flare it fast enough? This F4 here flares it really quickly and he lives. Then I dunk another R-73 right into this F5's face at very close range. That's the easiest position to flare the missile in a head-on, but he can't react quickly enough to flare it, so it hits him anyways. If you're charging and playing armed with R-73s, you really want to pre-flare. Now, I should clarify that F-104 comment, the one from like 2 minutes ago. Some F-104s do have flares. If I have the time, I will check the statistics page to see what specific variant the guy I'm shooting at is flying, but if I don't have time, I'll just assume it has no flares. This is because the American F-104s don't have flares, and American F-104s are most of the F-104s you'll be seeing in a match. Anyways, you can now see that someone has shot a radar missile at me. You remember what I said about targets flying towards or away from you? Well, now that I'm the target, then all else equal, I want to be flying away from the missile coming at me. It doesn't make it technically infeasible for the missile to hit me, but it throws a lot of practical barriers in the face of the person who's trying to kill me. If I'm going fast enough with enough of a head start, there's like a 95% chance that alone will defeat the missile, but even if it doesn't, the missile will have a lot less energy once it finally gets near me, and that makes it a lot easier to dodge. A good head start kind of depends on, there's a million factors when you're dealing with like literal rocket science, but basically if you're like 3 to 5 kilometers away from the person shooting you, you're going like at least 800-900 kilometers an hour, it's going to be really hard for that missile to hit you if you're flying straight away from it. And again, there's like a million asterisks to this, it's rule of thumb. Okay, so time to talk about the airframe. As you might have noticed, all match, I've been nibbling around the edge of the furball rather than going into it. If you've watched my channel enough, you know exactly why I'm doing this, but I'll quickly explain it again just for people who are new. So all of the flight models in Arcade are buffed except for the acceleration, which gets heavily nerfed on all planes that have afterburner. The MiG-21 is a delta wing plane. That means it can go very fast and turn very fast, but it has terrible energy retention. So it's very easy to lose energy, and if you do lose your energy, it's going to take you a long time to get it back because acceleration got nerfed. So if you're joining us from Realistic, please be aware that this plane plays entirely different in Arcade, and Arcade MiG-21s are some of the trickiest planes for most players to learn how to fly in this game. It also means they're balanced accordingly, so if you do know how to fly them, then you can wipe the floor with them, and it's awesome. But the long and the short of it is, if you're flying a MiG-21 Arcade, you have to be pretty anal about making sure you always have enough energy, and given all the ways you can lose or misuse energy, that's easier said than done for most players. But anyways, you generally want to start matches with hit and run attacks to whittle down and thin out the enemy team. Get in, shoot them, and leave before they have time to respawn. Given how fast planes move in top tier, if your opponent doesn't respond in a second or two, you can put a huge amount of distance between the two of you, and they can just head back somewhere they can't get you to reload in safety. And specifically the way you attack is you basically zip around the map as fast as possible and use your speed to get close to the enemy planes, and then you have your missiles do the dogfighting for you. If you do the dogfighting, then you bleed all your energy really quickly, and then you're a sitting duck and you die. You should essentially think of this plane as a missile that serves as a mothership for other missiles. However, you should remember that the less dense the airspace, the more wiggle room you have to use your energy. So once you've whittled down enough of the enemy players, you have more freedom to maneuver, like literally the freedom to maneuver your plane, because you can let your speed slip a bit more than you normally would be able to if there aren't many players around to third party you. Thus, by the end of the match, you can wind up with a plane that outruns and outturns everyone and has a huge amount of firepower. So everyone dies, and you're the one who killed them, which is a lot of fun. And this basic approach is why you can do crazy things in Arcade with a MiG-21 that has all-aspect missiles. However, you have to play all of your cards right to make that happen, so it's, kind of difficult to just kill everyone. That doesn't quite happen for me this match, but what does happen is I get to see about one of each of the dicey situations you're likely to encounter when flying this plane more or less correctly, and I figured that showing you how to handle all of those would be better than showing you how to shoot down prop planes with R-73s. I mean, one of those you could probably figure out on your own. Okay, so here I see at least one reasonably fast plane, the F4 Phantom, coming after me while I'm reloading. I'm going to run to my spawn to get a positioning advantage, try to stack the deck before he forces a turn fight. But unfortunately my teammates just don't really materialize, so I have to deal with him myself. Since I have flares, I'm going to let him close to gun range, and then I'm going to slam the rudder and get the hell out of the way and make him overshoot. I can easily outturn this F4 Phantom and kill him with a gun, no problem. However, it's going to cost me all of my speed. That makes me a sitting duck for anyone else who happens by. That's my concern. So the other reason I flew past the spawn is that was the most deserted corner of the map I could get to before this F4 could close to gun range. It was the best bet, it was the right move, but didn't quite work out, and I now have an F5 on my tail. Now, because my teammates have finally started arriving and this F5 is the only enemy left in the area, my objective is to use the limited energy maneuverability I have left to delay him from killing me long enough so I can set up my teammates for a perfect shot on him for me. That's the best way to get him out of the way. And he blows up right before he can land the killing blow on me. I'm honestly surprised it took my teammates that long. Usually if you set a player up to be killed by your teammates, it's like throwing a french fry in front of a flock of seagulls. Like, they'll just all jump on the guy and he just vanishes. Just vanishes in an ocean of missiles. And unfortunately, it looks like that F5 shot managed to take out my engine. So, I'm not gonna last much longer. Let's pop one of the, like, infinite backups you get from the battle pass, and good as new. But it's important to remember that in top tier air arcade in general, and the MiG-21 in particular, you need to take a lot of calculated risks. The more and more the enemy team gets snowballed, however, the surer thing your bets become. This is why I generally won't trash talk someone in a MiG-21 until after I've killed most of their team already. Even if you die in a MiG-21, you'll know you're on the right track if you're only suffering what I like to call complex deaths. This is where one guy does something that sets the other guy up to kill you. Like how that F4 set me up to get killed by that F5 even though it was unintentional. And here we have another dicey situation that requires calculated risk. And it all gets started when this F-105 manages to dodge a short-range R-73 shot without flares. Like, I checked the replay and he managed to dodge that R-73 without flares, which is some absolute ninja moves. I thought he was in the no escape range for that missile, but I guess I was wrong. Then this F5 managed to dodge my head-on R-27 shot, which was also one hell of a ninja move at that range against that kind of missile. So my original plan was just shoot those guys down and then fly away scot-free, but that clearly isn't going to work anymore. Instead, I'm now being chased by a crowd, and that F-105 is gaining on me, and he will eventually force a turn fight. In the meantime, I have to worry about that T2 more than the F5 or the F-105, because the T2 actually has the best missiles out of the three of them. Like, I'll need to use precious energy to dodge them, and then, however, I still want to draw this out as much as possible. People get bored with chases or they pull out when they run out of missiles. If I run out the clock, things can only get worse for this F-105 that's after me, and that is what happens. By the time I have to brake, he's the only one who's stuck with the chase. So I dodge his shots, and now I can dogfight him far away from anyone else. He now has no cards left to play. I can force him to overshoot, I can outturn him, and there is no one around to help him. And my R-73 is about to come off reload, and this time it will be literally impossible for him to dodge them. Except he flew into the ground before I got my chance, so I guess he did, technically speaking, dodge an impossible R-73 shot once again. Okay, but seriously, I know that first dodge probably might not look like much on video, but like, the fact that he dodged that first R-73 shot, like, back at the start, that was some ninja skills. The much bigger issue, however, is that chase prevented me from providing air cover for my teammates who were trying to cap. So I'm going in for a Hail Mary charge. It's a close match, so I'm hoping someone's going to cap one of the objectives at the last moment, and it just doesn't happen. Well, at least I gave that team a run for their money, and I hope that taught you how to fly this thing in arcade now. And remember, if you subscribe and ring the bell, you won't need to remember how to spell AOLI pay next time you want to watch one of my videos.